Okay, so moving on to IKFK switching. And before I do that, one thing I forgot to do in the last video with the IK arms was to take all of these controls, so the clavicle buffer controls here and the pole vector controls and also the actual arm controls themselves, just take all of that and put it inside of the controls group in the rig. And by doing that, now if we scale it, you'll see that it scales up and down, nothing gets distorted, everything works as expected. Okay, with that done, we need now to do the IKFK switching. We have the FK arms rigged, we have the IK arms rigged, so we need to have the ability to go back and forth between them. Same thing as we did in the legs. As you can see, I'm in FK mode here. If I go there, I'm in IK mode, so I can go back and forth as needed. So I'm just going to duplicate this control here rather than make a new one, because it already has the IK to FK attribute on it. But in order for me to take, so if I duplicate it, in order for me to take this duplicate and move it up to here, what I can do is just go to Windows, because I don't have my translates and rotate. So as you can see, I cannot move it. It's grayed out. That's because I locked and hid the translate channels. So I'm going to go to Windows, General Editors, and Channel Control. There it is. Okay, and in this list here, I'm going to look for my translates, my scales, XYZ, and my rotates, XYZ, and hit the move button to the left to bring them into this window here. Then I can close this and select all these and unlock selected. Okay, now it'll move. You'll see that it will move. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snap it to my palm joint right here. Just hold down V and snap it there. If you wanted to sort of orient the same as, you know, the other control, I'm just going to eyeball it. I could go to all the trouble, you know, and use constraints to get it perfect, but when it comes down to it, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so if it bugs you, go ahead and then I'm just going to freeze transformations. And once again, I have a shortcut right here, but it's modify freeze transformations. I'm just going to use my shortcut that's going to zero all that out, not that it matters. And let's fix this name here to take that one off of there and just put arm in here, so I know that's for the arm. And then in order to mirror it across, what I need to do is hit Control G to group it to itself. As you can see, it's still in there. Hit Control D to duplicate that group with that one in there. I'm going to rename that second one right, and then all I need to do is select that group and put a -1 in the scale X of that second group. And the reason that I group them to each other is anytime you group something, it makes the pivot point of that group the origin, and that makes it easy for me to then mirror things across, because they're mirroring across the center line here. So once I have that there, you'll see that it lines up with the palm on this side. All I have to do then is take both of these and pull them out of those groups. Now these groups are now empty, and I can delete them. And then of course, because we're going with the color scheme here, if I select this, what I can do is then go in the attribute editor, go to the transform node, which is the leftmost tab here, and then display drawing overrides, and I have it as red here. I need to switch it to that green so that it's the same color as the controls on this side. Okay, then just to keep this moving with everything else, I'm going to select this palm joint, shift select my control, and just constrain and parent. And I'm going to go in the options, just going to reset the settings, make sure the maintain offset is on. Otherwise it's going to try to align everything and move it. You don't want that to happen, so hit add, and now anytime that arm moves, you'll see that my control goes with it. Same thing on this side. Select the palm joint, select the control. I'm going to hit G just to repeat my last command, and then if I move, you'll see that it goes along for the ride. Okay, so that's nicely set up there. So we have our control for setting up the IKFK switching. So let's go ahead then and set this up. Okay, so to do that, we need our node editor. And actually what I'm going to do, instead of going to Windows and Node Editor and having it as a separate window, I'm just going to go here to Panels. I'm going to go to Layout. I'm going to go to 2 panes side by side. That's going to split my view. And in this one, I'm going to go to Panels, Panel, and Node Editor. Okay, that's just going to make it so I can keep an eye on what's going on in the viewport while I work, and just adjust the view to get the maximum view here. Okay, so this IKFK switch here was for the legs, so I'm just going to rename this tab here, and I would always recommend that you do things in separate tabs, because it makes things clearer, and you can save that. So I'm going to actually lock this tab so that nothing gets messed up here. So I'm going to make a new tab here, and we're going to call this ARM IKFK switch. Now I can work in here to get my IKFK switching. So again, we're going to take this in steps here. We're going to start with the shoulders and then work our way down to the wrist. Okay, so I'm going to select this, and this is my IK joint chain here. I'm going to hit F just to reveal it, and you can see that's where they are. So I have my left FK, my left IK, and my left bind. So I'm going to open these up to the shoulder. Okay, so shoulder, shoulder, shoulder. So I'm going to select bind shoulder, FK shoulder, and IK shoulder, and I'm going to hit the little plus here to add them to this graph, and let's separate them so that they're visible here. Now the way I like to set it up is I like to put my bind shoulder all the way to the right. I like to put my FK shoulder above my IK shoulder, and then I'm going to hit tab. That's going to bring up this little text box here, and I'm going to start to type in blend colors, and when I see it I can go ahead and select it. So we're going to rename this to left shoulder blender. Okay, then I need to also bring in this control right here, the one for switching IK to FK, and I'm going to add that to my graph as well. So right off the bat, I'm going to take my IK to FK attribute and plug it into the blender attribute of the blend colors node. Okay, then I'm going to take the rotates out of my FK shoulder and plug those into color 1, which is going to create this conversion node. I'm just going to hit 1 to collapse it down to its smallest size, and then I'm going to take my rotates from the IK shoulder, plug into color 2, and then collapse that conversion node. So again, it's very important that you remember to put the IK chain into color 2 and the FK chain into color 1. Okay, then the bind shoulder, why is that doing that? The bind shoulder here, I'm going to take the output of this and plug it into this rotate here, and again it's going to make this node here, so I'm going to bring it here and collapse it, and that is the setup here for the IK FK switching. And for some reason my node editor keeps acting up here. Do I have snapping on? No, I don't. Okay, so that is the shoulder done. Okay, so let's go down to the elbow level. So bind elbow, FK elbow, and IK elbow. I'm going to add those to the graph. And this node editor is not the best in how it initially places nodes, so it's kind of annoying, but you get used to it. So IK goes down here, this is the bind, goes this side, and the FK goes above the IK. Okay, and these connections here, because each, like the shoulder is obviously connected to the elbow, so you're going to get these links here, which can get a little confusing, but don't worry about them. And then here, instead of making a whole new blend colors, I'm just going to duplicate this node here, and I'm going to bring this down here, and then we're going to call this left elbow blender. Elbow. Okay, left elbow blender. So again, we have the FK elbow right there. I'm going to take the rotates from there and plug them into color 1, and of course my conversion node is going to appear way up there. I'm going to bring it down here, collapse it, rotate from the IK to color 2, get the node, hit 1 to collapse it. Then output to rotate, then bring down the node, collapse it there, and then of course I'm going to keep dragging this guy down here to connect him. IK to FK goes into Blender. Okay, so right now we're not going to see anything here, and that's okay. We'll test it out when we've got the rest of them done. All right, so let's move this guy further down here. So we have the shoulders and we have the elbows done. Okay, next thing we got is forearms. So I'm going to open up the forearms. So bind forearm, FK forearm, and IK forearm, and let's add those to the graph. Drag them down. I'm going to maximize this. Okay, so this is FK, so that goes here. This is IK, so that goes below that. And this is the bind side, which goes here. Let's duplicate, Control D, that node, which gets put way up here. Really, Autodesk needs to work on how these nodes appear, because otherwise I have to keep going back up there to get stuff. So again, this is, which one is this? Forearm. So we're gonna go here, forearm, Blender, and get the 1 off of there. Did I do that for this one? Yes, I did. Okay. So again, take the IK to FK and plug it into Blender. And it's very easy to forget to do that step, and then your IK/FK switching does not work as you expect. So make sure you do that one. So rotate from FK goes into color 1. There's a conversion node that's up there. I'll just get it after I've done all the connections. The rotates from the IK side go to color 2, and then the output goes to the rotate on the bind arms, and then we can go get those 3 nodes. So I'm just going to select these 3, bring them down. Okay, and this one goes here, collapse it. This one goes here, collapse that, and this one goes here, collapse it. Okay, so that is forearm done. Next, wrist and wrist and wrist. So bind wrist, FK wrist, IK wrist, and let's add those to the graph. Bring it down here. Okay, what do we have? This is FK. This is IK, which goes below that, and then this is bind, which goes here. Duplicate this and go get it way up here. Okay, I'm going to call this wrist and get the 1 off of there. Good. And again, we want the rotate on FK to color 1, rotate on IK to color 2, and output to the rotates on the bind. Okay, and again we need to go up there and get these nodes. So you can see this is pretty fast with the connection editor, but there are some annoying things about the connection editor. So move that there, collapse it, move this one here, collapse that. Oh, did not collapse. Oh, that's why. I'm hitting 1 and it's not collapsing. There we go. Why are you doing that? Okay. There. This is weird. Why? See, this is what happens now. Okay, let's try this guy. Hit 1. Alright, whatever. If it won't work, I'm just going to leave them as is. Okay, so there is the wrist. So let's go ahead and test this. Oops. Okay, now my keyboard is acting weird. Alright, so perspective. So I'm going to, right now I have my IK arm visible because that's the one I was working on last. I'm going to hit Control H to hide the IK shoulder, and then I'm going to I'm going to select the bind shoulder and shift H to show that, because that's the one that's actually going to be bound to the geometry. So if I move, and I need to make sure that I'm in, so that's FK mode. So, and I have not done so let's go. I'm going to put this IK to FK at 0, which is IK mode. Yeah, there we go. So everything's moving. And again, the hand's not moving right now because I connect that last, so we'll do that a little bit later. So, and if we IK to FK switch, you'll see that it goes back and forth between IK and FK. Now we don't have the FK controls visible, so we will do that. One thing that I'm going to do here is, if I go back to my panel and node editor, just to tidy this up, I'm going to select all these joints, hit 2 to collapse them down a little bit, just to make them smaller so they take up less space. Hit 2 and hit 2. Okay, and that's what that's going to do, is allow me to then sort of compress this down a little bit here. Compress this. Okay, it's just something I do. It's up to you if you do this or not. It's not really that important. But this way I can compress my whole graph here, so I'm not oh, and you know what? And I just as I was saying how easy it is to forget this, I did forget to plug it into the wrist blender. Okay, so I'm sure those of you paying attention were probably yelling at me to do that. I caught it, so we're good. There we go. Just compress these like this. Take this, and again, the reason I do this is just to make this whole thing shorter, so it's not taking up a lot of room. And bring this up here. So that is the left side. Okay, make sure you save before Maya crashes on you like it tends to do. Okay, so let's do the other side. So I'm going to select this control. Oh, and before I do that, I'm going to select all of this and sort of move it off to the left. Reason being that the nodes tend to pop in right in the center of the graph right there, which was like over here. So if I take this and move it over here, that leaves this open. Okay, so let me select this IK to FK switch control and add it to the graph. You'll see that now things are popping up over here as they were. Okay, so now here again, we're going to go select this and hit F. And then we can see the bind shoulder, FK shoulder, IK shoulder. Going to add those to the graph. And let's zoom in on this. Okay, so this is FK, so it goes, oh yeah, FK goes above. So let's move these like this, so get them even with the other ones. And then the bind one goes over here. Okay, and then we need our blend colors node. Again, I'm just going to duplicate this the left shoulder blender, so Control D, and then take this, move it over here, and okay, so rename this to right shoulder blender and get rid of the 1. Okay, and again, this is the same thing over again. So FK rotates, go to color 1. IK rotates, go to color 2. The outputs go to the rotates of the bind chain. And then we need to take all our conversion nodes and here, collapse that one, this one, collapse that one, and this one, collapse that one. Okay, and then now that these are done, I'm just going to hit 2 to collapse them down even further. And then take this guy, move him closer like this. Okay, so that's one. Let's go to, let's go ahead and just open these all the way to the wrist. Now, I like to sort of add them to the graph as I need them. The reason being, I don't want to clutter my graph too soon, because then I get a whole bunch of nodes on top of each other and it just becomes a whole thing. So I like to just take the one that I'm working on and do that one. Save real quick. and then do that one and then come back for the rest. So elbow, bind elbow, FK elbow, IK elbow. Add those to the graph. And did I do the blender? No, I didn't again. So again, I want to take IK to FK and plug it into Blender. So here we go. So then these ones here, this is FK, so it goes up here. This is bind, and this is IK. Select this node and duplicate it. Okay, so FK rotates color 1, IK rotates color 2, output to the rotate on the bind chain. Okay, and then I can get my node, my conversion nodes, just to get them out of the way, that when they hit 1 to collapse it. 1 to collapse, 1 to collapse. Okay, and then I can take my joints, hit 2, and then just align everything and hit 2. And here we are, and I will not forget this again, but we need to take the IK to FK of this and plug it into the blender. Okay, I'm just going to drag this guy down so I don't forget him again. Alright, so let's just tidy this up a little bit. Just makes it so much easier to read what's going on if it's nice and tidy. Alright. So that's 2 of them. What's next? That was the elbow, so we can do the forearm next. Forearm, forearm, and forearm. Add those to the graph. Drag them down. So this is IK. FK goes above that. And bind goes here. Let's take these two, just move them over. Duplicate. I forgot to take the 1 off of that. Okay. Oh. There we go. Oh, right. It should be right elbow. And take the 1 off. Okay, so we're just going to select that one and duplicate it. Bring it down here, rename it Forearm Blender. Okay. And again, we have the FK rotates color 1. Might as well take IK to FK in the blender so we don't forget. IK rotates color 2. And output to the rotates on the bind forearm. Get those nodes. Yeah, make sure you bring the nodes down. If you leave them up there, it's just going to be really hard to see the flow of your graph. So try to just keep everything logically placed to where it's going to make sense. So right there. Okay, those are done. I'm going to select these and hit 2. And bring this down here. This hit 2. Bring this down here. And there we go. And then just take all this and move it up here. So it sort of lines up. And the last one, wrist. So bind wrist, FK wrist, IK wrist. Add this, and I'm just going to hit save. Got to get in the habit of saving just because bad things do happen. And we don't want to have to redo a bunch of stuff. So bind wrist, FK wrist goes here, and IK wrist goes right below that. Okay. Select this blend colors node, Control D. Duplicate it, rename this right wrist blender, and right FK wrist color 1, right IK wrist rotates color 2, IK to FK goes to blender, and output goes to rotate. Okay, so let's get our nodes down here. So you go here. Uh-oh, it's doing it again. Okay, whatever. Let's move this one here and this one out. This one here. Yep, it's doing it again. Not really sure why the text box gets activated and then I can't like get out of it. I don't know why that is. See, anytime I press 1, it goes back into that text box. So it's probably a little trick that I'm missing. It is what it is. Let's select these. Will it let me convert them? Nope. So it won't let me. Well, I guess I could do it here, and this here. These are buttons that collapse the nodes. So I'm gonna do that there. Okay, this one. Let's see if okay, now it works if I use the keypad. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this over here somewhere, and then take this one here. Okay. So let's move that up here. So those are all done. So you can see we have a very similar layout here for the nodes. So save. And now we can test this side. So again, here I have the IK joint set showing. So I'm going to hide that IK shoulder and I'm going to bring back my bind shoulder. And right now I'm in FK mode, so I'll go to IK mode, and if I move this, then if I switch, you'll see that the arm goes back and forth. So that's our IK FK switching. Okay, so what we need to do now is set it so that the controls for IK or FK appear or disappear depending on the mode that we're in. Okay, because right now when I do my IK-FK switching, you'll see that my IK controls don't disappear. They stay where they are. Okay, so we want to make it so that they do disappear. Now, before we do anything else, I'm going to select both of these IK-FK switch controls, and I'm just going to select all this stuff here and then lock and hide selected. Okay, and because I duplicated these controls from the feet, these controls should already be inside of the controls group, which they are. If they're not, you can just throw them in there. Okay, so the controls. Okay, again, back to our node editor, and we have a control visibility thing here, which was for the legs, and because there's not really that much stuff in this graph, I'm going to use it for the arms as well. Okay, so as you can see, we had the IK-FK switchers. So I have both of these IK-FK switch controls selected. I'm just going to add them both to this graph. So this is the left one, so I'm going to move that here, and then I'm going to move the right one over here. Okay, so let's start on the left side. So what we need to bring in is let's see, shoulder control buffer and the left knee PV. Sorry, not the left knee, the left arm PV, and let me just see how I set this up here. Well, let's start with that. Oh, we need the left arm control. There it is. Okay, so those three things there. I'm going to hit the add button. Okay, let's zoom in on this. So left shoulder control, left IK arm control, left PV. So again, what we need to remember is that a value of 0 in IK to FK means IK mode, and a value of 1 means FK mode. So the FK controls is this left shoulder control buffer. Okay, as you can see, when we made it, we locked everything except visibility on it. So when IK to FK is 1, we want this visibility to be on. And the nice thing about visibility is that it's an on and off switch, and to turn it off you set it to 0, to turn it on you set it to 1. Well, that sort of lines up with our IK to FK. At 0 we want this to be off, and at 1 we want it to be on. So we can just plug this directly into that visibility. Okay, so as you can see, it's off right now, but if I go to IK to FK and switch this to 1, then our visibility is then on, as you can see. So if I go back and forth here, if I do in the viewport, so select this, off, on, off, on, off, on. You can see the controls go back and forth. Now, for the pole vectors and the arm control, it's not going to be as simple because we need to invert that so that when IK to FK is at 0, these are on, and when it's at 1, they're off. So I'm going to do what I did here, and so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to move this up here and move these two down here. So we need a condition node. Okay, so let's save here. So what I need to do is hit tab and start to type in condition and then select it from the list. Okay, so I'm going to rename this to left arm control viz for visibility. Left arm control viz with an N, not an M. There. So if I double click this, is going to bring this in here. So the first term, I'm going to plug my IK to FK into the first term. So we're going to compare the first term to the second term, and the operation we're going to use is equal. So if the first term is equal to the second term, then we want to output a 1, right? So if this is 0 and this is 0, they're equal, so we want to output a 1. So we want to invert that 0 to a 1. And then if it's false, we want to tell it 0. Because if this first term comes in as a 1, that means we're in FK mode. So we want the IK controls to be off. So this comes back false, so we're going to set the output value to 0, which is going to turn the visibility off. But if this comes in as a 0, that means we're in IK mode, and we do want the IK controls to show up, right? So then this is going to come back as true, and that's going to put a 1, which is going to plug into the visibility and make them visible. Okay, so just, you know, if you have to take the time to sort of think that through to figure it out, by all means do. It's really convenient that it works. So we can then plug the output color R into visibility here and here. Just try that again. There we go. Okay, so again, let's see how that works. Select this, go in the channel box, get our IK to FK. So right now we're in FK mode. If I go back to 0, I'm in IK mode. You'll see that my controls appear and reappear depending on the mode that I'm in. Okay, let's do the same for the other side. So that's going to be going over on this side. So we need the right shoulder control buffer, the right arm PV, and the right IK arm control buffer. So let's add those to the graph here. Okay, so there's a PV and the arm control, and there's a shoulder control. Okay, so again, because the IK control should be visible when this IK to FK value is set to 1, I'm just going to plug this directly. Okay, and then so I don't have to make another, I'm just going to duplicate that condition node, and where did it pop up? Popped up somewhere. Did it? Yeah, let me undo. Let's try that again. Select it, Control D. And where are you? Where are you? Where did it go? I don't know. Maya's no, it's not there. It's probably behind one of these other nodes. And oh, you know what it is? This is locked because I forgot to unlock it. So let me undo back here. And again, I make this mistake all the time. So let's, this one here got collapsed for some reason. There we go. All right, let's unlock that. Select this. Control D, there we go. So when you have it locked, you'll see that things don't pop up automatically. So this is right arm control visibility, and because it's already set up the way that I want, all I need to do is plug this into first term and then plug the output or the out color R into visibility on here and on here. And let's go ahead and test this side. So channel box, if we go to 1, we go to FK mode, and you'll see that the FK controls work as expected. And then at any time we can switch back to that. So now what I'm noticing here, of course, is that we forgot to we cannot constrain this guy. What do we constrain it to? Yeah, I need to get rid of this constraint. So you see I did it to the wrong palm here, so I need to get rid of this constraint. So little mistake there, no big deal. And I'm going to bring back my channels here. I was supposed to and I might have done it on the other side. We'll see in a second. So in fact, let's just go ahead and look at it now. Yep, I did the IK palm there too. So let's just kill all this. There we go. All right, so it happens. So here we go. So we need the rotates, and we need the translates right there. Move those over and unlock. Okay, and that happened because I had my IK chain visible, because that was the last one I was working on, and I forgot to hide it and bring back the bind chain. So this is now the bind palm. So select that first, select the control second, constrain parent. Let's do the same on this side. Join first, control second, hit G. Okay, now we can lock and hide everything except IK to FK, and do the same on this guy. Okay, now if I move my control, there we go. Now it's moving as expected. And then if I do an IK to FK switch, you'll see that the control goes to whatever palm is visible, and then it works. Okay, let's make sure this side works as well. So if I move this, it moves. And then if I do an IK switch, it goes to this one, which is here. Okay, now I'm going to zero out my FK side here just so I don't forget it. There. Okay, and again, if you switch, and then let's zero this one out. Okay, and this side, yep. Okay, so that is now working. So now what we need to do then is the arm control, IK arm control buffers. We're going to lock and hide everything, because now that everything is set, so lock and hide, do the same for the right side. Select that, lock and hide. The pole vectors. The pole vectors only need they only need translates, so I'm going to lock and hide everything here. Now the pole vectors on the arms I didn't use buffers on the way that I did with the legs. If I switch this back here, these are inside of buffers because I used the space switching here. I don't really do that with the arms, but by all means, if that's something that's you feel could be useful for you, feel free to do that. Okay, and then what else? We need to, on the arm controls themselves, we're going to lock the scales and visibility. So lock and hide selected, select that one, lock and hide selected on scales and visibility. The gimbal controls. The gimbal controls only need to rotate, so we're going to lock scales, visibility, and translate. So lock and hide selected. And the clavicle controls we already did. They only need rotates. Okay, let's just go ahead and check the FK controls, make sure that their channels are all locked. So let's just do it right here. I'm just going to open all this up. Yeah, everything looks like it's locked as it needs to be. Okay, so, and we've hidden all those other arm chains, the IK and FK arm chains. So we're only showing the bind chains. So that is what we needed. Okay, and then at this point, what we can do is now connect the hands into it. So I'm going to select my left hand root first, select the palm second, hit P. Do the same on this side, the right hand root first, the right palm, and hit P. So now what we can do is, you'll see that now if I rotate from anywhere, that the hand will go along with it. Okay, so that was setting up IKFK switching for the arms. Now usually the default that I leave my arms in is FK, because generally you're going to be animating your arms in FK. And then the default I leave for the legs is IK, because that gives you the ability to move like this, which is something that generally you want to do with legs. But with the arms, you generally want it to be in FK mode to get those nice arcs when the character walks or enunciates or whatever they do with their hands. Okay, so that is the IK FK switching. The next thing that we're going to get onto is working with the hands. Okay, and we're going to do a pretty simple hand setup of controls. So until then, save your work, of course. Until then, we'll see you guys then. And please, again, if you like this stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and hit that little bell icon if you want to get notified whenever I make a new video. All right, thanks, guys.